All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Leaders List. I'm Tony Amador. This is my co-founder, Logan Speights, and we're going to talk about marketing today. A lot of our clients ask us about marketing. That's certainly one of the many things that are a part of growing and building your business. And so since we focus on all the different aspects of running a business, of course, people ask us about marketing. Our background, all three co-founders, is in marketing. And so people probably ask us even a little more than they might another group. And so today I'm excited because Logan's going to take us through a talk that he's given at least once, maybe a few times at different conferences and different events, and just walk you through how he thinks and we think about how to get ready and be successful at marketing. So without further ado, let me jump in and welcome Logan and get us rolling.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony. So yeah, as our customers come to us and start talking about marketing, sometimes it's hard to understand why. In a visual way, let me pull up this view. Every logo you see on the screen right now in all of these different sections is a different marketing tool, marketing program, marketing concept that ultimately you need to bring into a full marketing plan if you're talking about running marketing full on. So obviously, if you're looking at this, it becomes very overwhelming. This is a nightmare to weed through if you aren't in the industry. So if you're an SMB, how can you approach this in a way where it actually makes sense and you don't add another full-time job to your already full schedule, trying to understand what do I do about marketing? So what I like to do is I like to take this and put it in a concept that a lot of us already understand, and that's poker. I think everybody here at least knows what poker is. If you haven't actually played it. But the beautiful thing is you take your cards, you shuffle them together, and then we start looking at the different types of media. So the structure that we like to use here is the PESO model. There are really four types of media that you can use inside of marketing. It starts with paid media. Then you get into earned media. Over on the right, you get your shared media. And the last at the bottom is owned media. And those four things together, you bring those together, and that can really make up your entire marketing campaign, your entire marketing strategy as you move forward. But what does that really look like? Well, if we're talking about poker, there are four different media types, and there are four different suits inside of a deck. So for this case, let's go ahead and make those 1-to-1. So we start looking at your different suits. We're doing spades here. Let's talk about owned media. For owned media and shared media, so if owned media is our spades, our shared media are our hearts, our bought media are our diamonds, and our earned media are our clubs. This is kind of how we can compare those two and put it in some sort of a construct that we can understand a little bit better. So let's talk about owned media. Owned media, complete control over your narrative because you get to write all of it, you get to put it out there. Typically, it costs a lot less because you build it and you put it out there. You're not paying anybody else to really touch it. You might have some hosting fees. You might have some other things in that. But overall, the cost for owned media is significantly less. And you get to publish it directly on your own assets. So you're not even having to pay for airtime or anything like that, or pay for placement on other sites. So all of this is stuff that you own, you control, and ultimately you can put out very, very cheaply. The cons, limited audience. If people aren't coming to your website, if people aren't reading your newsletters, if people aren't doing that, you have a very limited audience. So it might be really cheap, but you aren't getting the eyeballs to go along with it. And you have to maintain all of it because you have to make sure that your newsletters are going out, your website is up to date. All of those types of things ultimately are on you to both control and to maintain. So there is a cost on that side of it. So what does it really look like for owned media? Websites, newsletters, storefronts, packaging, blogs, podcasts, even stuff like we're doing right here for our leaders list. This is Proxxy's owned media. And so as you start looking through these, this is definitely something that you definitely need to keep an eye on as far as the owned media inside of all of your marketing. We jump over to shared media. Shared media is organic and more trusted, if you will. Obviously, if it's paid for ad, if it's on your website, of course, it's going to be great. If it's out there in the public, it seems to be seen as more trusting. And if you can really do it right, it's almost free. Yes, there's influencers and some other stuff that we'll talk about, but pure shared media is almost free. and you get to talk directly to your customers. So instead of traditional one-way marketing, this becomes a dialogue. This becomes something that you get to talk back and forth with your customers about. On the con side of this, it is a conversation, and you only get one side. You can't control what happens on the other side of that. So we've seen a lot of brands get into shared media and start running into problems at times because they put something out that they think is going to be good. The market reacts in a very negative way to that, and then you have to deal with that side of it. And that makes it difficult to predict because you can't really mandate how the market is going to respond to the things that you put out into it. The other last thing about this that you need to keep in mind, you are leveraging other people's platforms. If you are doing things like that and they change the rules on you, you have to adapt. So we've seen a lot of that in the Twitter changes. We've seen a lot of that in like the TikTok changes and things like that. So again, if we start talking shared media, because you are beholden to those other platforms, you have to be aware of that as you're moving through your shared media. Again, the primary place where we see this, social media. So LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all the way down to TikTok, again, are your primary places where you see that. On the other side, you get into some of your affiliate marketing stuff, your influencer campaigns, some of your text-based stuff as well, as far as like text SMS-based stuff. Mm-hmm. Those are kind of your different platforms that you can leverage when we start talking about this type of media. If we get into kind of the next section, our bot media, instant results. You pay money, you get eyeballs. That's the beauty of it. This has matured in our world to the point where it's very easy to track. Almost any platform you go and start buying media, you're going to get reports back on it to know exactly what you're paying for, exactly how many people are coming, things like that. Makes the ROI calculations very, very simple on bot media. And with that, you get the benefit of kind of your own, because you get to control what goes out there. And so you are able to control it. You get to see how many eyeballs get on it, things like that. And if you do it right, if you pick the right platforms, it's easy to target your ICPs in a very specific way, which ultimately should increase your conversions and make all of that a whole lot more worth your money. The cons of that is it's because you're paying somebody else to get access to those eyeballs. So it is the most expensive way of doing marketing in the environment today. If you're in a highly competitive area, it's even more expensive. So you have to make sure that you're keeping some of that in mind as you get in there. And it's easy to become very dependent on it early. You might have a low spend early in your build, and as you start scaling and hit that hockey stick that we're all pushing for, as you start scaling up with eyeballs and visibility, that price tag scales along with it. So when you're doing bot media, you definitely need to make sure that you're keeping that in mind as you go through that. If you go all the way back through billboards, direct mail, all the way up through TV, radio, PPC stuff, both on LinkedIn and Google, display ads, a little bit of everything really works into this as far as paid goes. And a lot of the stuff that we see a lot of people do is the pay to play pieces as well. And the retargeting are both very popular things at the moment to start leveraging your content on other people's platforms to get those eyeballs. The last set here is earned media. So earned media ultimately increases your credibility tremendously because it's not anything that you've written. It's nothing that you've put out there. This is 100% what other people have found about you and put out there. It does heighten your brand awareness as you get things in the market, because if other people are talking about you, that widens your audience, lets other people see what you're doing, and ultimately really does expand your reach because you're leveraging other people's typically larger networks to talk about you and your business. The con of this is a lot of times when that comes up, to bring negatives. So if something happens, if somebody says something, if something goes wrong, and you land in this, that could be a PR nightmare that you have to adjust for. A lot of this takes time as well, and so it's not something you just flip on all of a sudden have all your news outlets talking about the things that you're doing. It takes time to kind of build those, mature that over time, and then because these hit sporadically, sometimes it does take years to kind of build up those stories and build up that presence in earned media to make sure that people are actually seeing that. So this definitely isn't a quick fix. One thing that I do like to call out very quickly here is don't jump into a PR firm too early. A lot of people go, I want this, I want to get started early. So they jump into hiring a high-powered PR firm before they're actually ready to get into those types of engagements. So when should you engage some sort of a PR firm? ultimately, when you have something that people want, if you're still trying to find product market fit, if you're still trying to test your ICP, if you're still out there doing some of those things, I would say wait on hiring a PR firm, especially if you're early stage startups. Most media outlets don't cover those unless you're big IPO, unless you're big tech, something like that, that has a bunch of high power people behind it. They typically don't cover a lot of that. And what you're trying to do early on is tie what you're doing into something that's timely that the news will cover, so that you can kind of compare and contrast and kind of bring those in as a way to help those outlets talk about what's active and going on in the world at that time. So what does this look like? Traditional press releases is one of the biggest and easiest ones. So articles, external blog posts. I put SEO in here as well, because that's, again, something that you do have some control over that, but it's how it's received and brought in. You jump over word of mouth, and referrals are a big piece of this as well. So definitely make sure you get that stuff going well. And then you get down into some of your guerrilla marketing stuff, your stunts, your ads, your kind of things that you do at a conference or at a location to really bring eyeballs to your business. So I have these four suits in your deck. And so what do you actually do with them if they are all collected? What you want to do is you want to build a hand, just be doing poker. So what I have to do is make sure that you're being strategic with it, is ultimately what I say. Ideally, pick one from each of the suits. So make sure that you have a little bit of each of them to separate those out. Make sure that you're hitting a little bit of each of those, so that you're really maximizing your time investment and your spend. And ideally, don't spend too much time on any one. So you want to make sure that as you're going through there, you are making sure that you're evenly balanced, because if something big happens on one, like as far as a build or a drop, you want to make sure that you have the other sides of those to either support what's happening if it's growing, or if it completely bottoms out, that you're not completely dead in the water. You have some other things working for you as well. But ultimately, spend about 80% of your time on this core hand that we're going to talk about building. Again, you don't want to make sure that you can't do everything, especially in small business. With all of the things that are out there, you can't do it all and can't do it well. Spend about 80% on what you're on kind of the core hands that you're going to build, and keep about 20% to play in other things, to kind of test, to see, what if I put out a press release? What if I do something small here? What if I do a guerrilla marketing technique? What might happen in those spaces? So you want to keep a little bit of flexibility there, but not over index on any one. The thing that I like to bring in here at the end is to remind yourself that everything works. Just not everything works for everybody. So again, a lot of our customers are in Texas. I've heard a lot of people talk about marketing and say that, like, billboards don't work, they're awful. Well, one of the largest companies that are growing in Texas is a gas station called Buc-ee's. They only do their marketing on billboards. And so if you're driving the roads in Texas, all you see are Buc-ee's billboards. Billboards are working for them. Will they work for you? Maybe, maybe not. But again, we don't want to get caught in those sections where you're like, well, that doesn't work anymore, because it might. So we start talking about what might this look like if we're starting to build a hand for a basic kind of B2B company. So if you're a B2B company, and we lay out our different types of media here, for B2B, your website is going to, you want to make sure that you have a presence. You want to make sure that that's built out. You want to make sure that that's understood and clean. So I would definitely spend a lot of time on your website if you're B2B, making sure that you're focused on that. Shared media for B2B, LinkedIn is the place to go right now. It really is probably the top social media that you need to have. If you're doing social media, a lot of times you can take what you're doing in LinkedIn and put it to the other platforms, make sure that you have a presence there. But again, if you're building a basic B2B hand, I would say go in heavy on LinkedIn to make sure that all of that is covered very well. Support that with podcasts and blogs. Again, with a lot of the stuff happening in AI, podcasts are great. Things like what you're watching right now, able to get the content out. You can leverage that for, again, LinkedIn content, blog posts, things past that. If you want to know, if you want to have kind of a playbook of what that looks like to run that from beginning to end, definitely reach out to us at Proxxy. We've done that for a lot of our clients to make sure that you maximize your output with minimum input. And again, it's a great way for B2B to get your shared media out there. Talked a lot about LinkedIn. Talking bot media, LinkedIn ads is probably where I would start. again, that's where people are looking for business connections. That's where a lot of that stuff happens. It just makes sense to put your money there as well as you're building out your bot media, to start with LinkedIn ads. And as far as earned goes, there's a website out there called Haro. It's Help a Reporter Online. And so what that is those are reporters who are writing articles, and they need people to come talk about either their product or their business or ways to approach something that's happening in their industry. It's an email that goes out. If you can speak to any of those, you reply to them. They'll take your quotes or whatever and put them into their articles very, very simply. And again, so basic B2B hand website, LinkedIn podcasts, LinkedIn ads, and Haro would be a great kind of basic way to jump into putting together a marketing strategy for a B2B. Now, jumping into B2C, it's going to look a little bit different. Obviously, if you're selling directly to a customer, your storefront is going to be even more important than your website itself. Now, those might be one and the same. They might not be. And so if you're doing Amazon, something like that, you want to make sure that you're all in on that storefront, not necessarily your website. But in a B2C, your storefront is kind of that quintessential piece that you have to have, obviously, to make money on in that B2C context. Shared media, again, you're talking about consumers. They're not in the business space. You want to start focusing on your Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Again, depending on your demographic, that might get into TikTok or some of the other ones, but definitely wanting to make sure that you have those presence there, putting things out into those platforms. Media, as influencers. Again, this is a very generic statement, but for most of most of our customers at the moment, Facebook ads and influencer campaigns are probably the best way to go for bot media to get that out there. And then earned media is all about reviews. So you want to make sure that you have reviews both on your website or on Amazon or on review sites and things like that, because that really is your best earned media for B2C selling a product into the market. And again, that would be a great way to get started on a basic B2C hand. So again, lots of ways to think about this, different things out there, but hopefully it's a very simple way to think about 4 different types of media, comparing your 4 suits in a deck of cards, and how you could build a hand to go to market, ultimately play marketing poker and win.
Oh, awesome, Logan. Thank you. I love the simplicity of all of that, of putting that together from a poker perspective, where there's with the 4 suits and just the way to think of it that way. I wondered, do you have what do you tell people, a small business that hasn't been doing much? I mean, certainly they're there on their website, but other than that, they're not doing a whole lot. What kind of budget do you talk to them about? Is it a percentage of their revenue? Where do you start?
Sure. So depending on how early stage they are, typically rule of thumb is anywhere between 12 and 20% of your total budget should be allocated towards marketing. Now, if you're just getting started and you don't have a lot, it might be 12 to 20% of your assumed budget, or your assumed revenue as you move forward. But again, without having the marketing layer in there, without knowing how you're actually going to get to your customers, you really have to invest in that side of it to get going. So that 12 to 20% of either your assumed, if you're pre-revenue, or if you're actually building kind of somewhere around that mark for your actual revenue to invest in those marketing activities.
That's great. Thank you for that. Well, Logan, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for doing the quick run through of that and sharing that with us today. And I certainly, as folks get a chance to look at that and want to get more information, either about how Proxxy works or how we think about marketing, give us a call, reach out to us, and we'd love to talk to you about it. It's certainly something that all of us love talking about, working on, thinking about. So we appreciate you and today, Logan, and all of you out there watching. And thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely.